There's a reason why balance is the secret ingredient in every aspect of life. Something that feels good in moderation can turn into a burden when taken to the extreme. Intimacy is no exception. While it connects, excites, and brings joy, too much of it can silently drain your body, shift your emotions, and even shake your mindset. If you've ever wondered what really happens when the balance tips too far, let's uncover the hidden effects of having too much sex. When the body is pulled into moments of intensity too frequently, the very thing that was meant to energize and uplift begins to turn against you. At first, the rush feels intoxicating, the heart racing, the muscles engaging, the warmth of touch creating a sense of aliveness that nothing else seems to replicate. But once the experience is repeated again and again without giving the body proper time to recover, fatigue sets in like an invisible weight. The mornings don't feel as fresh, the evenings don't feel as vibrant, and slowly, your baseline energy drops lower than you realize. Instead of walking with sharp focus and a strong stride, you begin moving with heaviness, as though every task demands more effort than it should. This drain doesn't always announce itself suddenly, it creeps in. You may think you're just having a lazy day, or that you didn't sleep enough, but the truth is that overindulgence taxes your system in ways that sleep alone cannot repair. Muscles that were once active feel sore, not from exercise, but from repetition without balance. The mind that once sparked with clarity feels foggy, as if your thoughts are moving through mud. The thrill that intimacy used to give becomes overshadowed by the sluggish recovery that follows. Your body has an internal rhythm, a natural clock that governs energy, hormones, and vitality. When pushed beyond that rhythm, it reacts with exhaustion. You may find yourself yawning more, craving stimulants like caffeine just to make it through the day, or skipping out on activities you once loved because your energy is already drained before the day even begins. And while intimacy should enhance life, when it's taken to excess, it begins to steal from other areas, productivity, creativity, and even your social presence. This is where many don't realize the trade-off they are making. What feels like pleasure in the moment can quietly strip away the very energy needed to chase goals, build dreams, and maintain a strong presence in daily life. Instead of rising with purpose, you begin dragging yourself through routines. Fatigue becomes the shadow that follows you, not because your body is weak, but because it hasn't been given the chance to restore itself. True vitality is not found in excess, but in balance. When the body has time to rest, passion feels fresh, powerful, and invigorating. But when it's overused, the result is nothing more than a tired shell moving through days with less and less drive. Inside the body, everything runs on balance. Hormones act like invisible messengers, guiding energy, mood, and even the way you experience pleasure. When intimacy becomes excessive, this delicate balance gets disrupted. At first, it feels like a never-ending rush. Dopamine spikes high, flooding the brain with excitement and reward. But the brain isn't designed to sustain constant highs. The more often you trigger that surge, the less sensitive your brain becomes to it. What once felt thrilling starts to feel ordinary, and soon you find yourself chasing more just to feel the same spark you once felt naturally. This cycle of overstimulation quietly rewires your system, leaving you restless, distracted, and sometimes even emotionally unstable. When the chemical rush fades away, oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, also plays its part. In healthy amounts, it brings closeness, trust, and connection. But when it floods the system again and again, the brain begins to normalize it. The warmth of bonding that once felt rare and precious becomes diluted, and instead of feeling deeply connected, you may start experiencing confusion. Relationships can begin to feel less about emotional intimacy and more about physical repetition. The very hormone that should make you feel secure and valued can, in excess, dull the emotional depth of closeness. Beyond the emotional shifts, the physical body also reacts to hormonal overload. Testosterone and estrogen levels, which naturally rise and fall, start to swing out of rhythm. Men may notice dips in drive or slower recovery, while women may feel mood changes or fatigue that seem unexplainable. These aren't random, they're signals that the body's natural cycle is being thrown off balance by too much stimulation. Over time, this imbalance can even affect sleep quality, stress levels, and overall health. Because the endocrine system, the very network of glands that regulates hormones, struggles to keep pace. What makes this imbalance dangerous is that it doesn't show up overnight. It's subtle. You may feel more irritable, less motivated, or emotionally distant without realizing the root cause. You may think something else is wrong, stress at work, lack of sleep, or personal issues, when in reality, it's the silent consequence of pushing your body's chemistry too far. Balance is what allows desire to feel meaningful and connection to feel alive. Without it, hormones lose their harmony, and you lose the very clarity, stability, and passion that intimacy was meant to bring. When something is rare, it carries weight, meaning, and excitement. But when it becomes constant, it loses its spark. The same rule applies to intimacy. In the beginning, every touch, every glance, every moment feels electric because the experience is fresh. The heart races, the mind lingers on the memory, and the bond feels alive. But when you indulge excessively, what was once special starts to turn into routine. Instead of anticipation, you feel expectation. Instead of excitement, you feel familiarity. The emotional intensity that intimacy should bring begins to fade, leaving behind a sense of detachment that is hard to explain but easy to feel. This detachment doesn't happen all at once. At first, you may notice that the moments no longer carry the same thrill. The butterflies in the stomach that once arrived so easily now rarely show up. The deep conversations and emotional connection that used to surround the act become shorter, replaced by a cycle of repetition. Slowly, the act turns into something physical rather than emotional. And while the body participates, the heart and mind feel less engaged. What should deepen love and affection ends up creating a quiet distance. The danger is that this kind of detachment often goes unnoticed until it becomes obvious. You may think everything is fine because the physical connection is still there, but deep down, something feels missing. You crave a deeper bond, but it slips further away the more intimacy becomes about quantity rather than quality. The mystery that once fueled desire begins to vanish, and in its place grows a kind of emotional numbness. You may find yourself less affectionate outside of the bedroom, less patient, and less emotionally available. Over time, this shift can make you feel disconnected not only from your partner, but also from yourself. Intimacy that once brought joy now feels like an obligation. You might even start questioning whether the relationship has changed or if you've changed, when in reality, it's the overindulgence that has dulled the emotional spark. Real closeness isn't built on repetition. It's built on presence, intention, and balance. Without those, even the most passionate connection can start to feel empty. The truth is, when everything becomes too much, the heart naturally begins to pull away, leaving behind a shell of what intimacy was meant to be. When two people come together, their connection thrives on harmony, respect, and understanding. But when intimacy tips into excess, balance often disappears, and that imbalance can quietly strain the relationship. At first, it may seem harmless. One partner desires more while the other goes along to keep the peace. But over time, differences in needs begin to surface. The one who craves less starts feeling drained, pressured, or even used, while the one who craves more feels unsatisfied, unappreciated, and rejected. This unspoken clash of desires can create tension that spills into other areas of the relationship. Arguments may not always be about intimacy itself. They might show up as irritation over small things, impatience during conversations, or a lack of emotional closeness. What used to feel like bonding slowly turns into conflict. The act that was supposed to bring two people closer together now becomes the very reason they feel distant. For some, resentment begins to grow, resentment from one side for constantly being asked, and resentment from the other for constantly being denied. Neither side feels fully understood, and the silent gap between them widens. This imbalance also affects trust and communication. When one partner feels pressured, they may withdraw emotionally, creating a wall of distance. They stop sharing feelings openly, fearing that every interaction will lead back to intimacy. On the other hand, the partner who feels deprived may start questioning their worth, wondering if they're no longer attractive or desired. These insecurities eat away at the foundation of the relationship, causing cracks that are hard to repair once they deepen. Overindulgence doesn't just damage the physical bond, it disrupts the emotional and mental connection as well. Instead of intimacy being a way to express love, it becomes a battlefield of unmet needs and unspoken frustrations. What was once effortless starts to feel heavy. Even the smallest acts of closeness outside of the bedroom, like holding hands, hugging, or having meaningful conversations, become overshadowed by the tension created through imbalance. A healthy relationship thrives when both partners feel respected and in sync, not when one person's needs dominate. Too much intimacy can tip the scales, making the connection feel lopsided and unsustainable. True closeness isn't about how often two people share physical moments, it's about how deeply they connect in all areas of life. Without balance, love begins to feel less like a partnership and more like a tug of war. Every human being has a limited reserve of energy, focus, and drive. When intimacy becomes excessive, it doesn't just affect the body, it begins to interfere with how the mind allocates that energy. What should be directed toward building goals, chasing dreams, and improving daily life often gets consumed by the constant pursuit of physical satisfaction. Instead of waking up with a sharp sense of purpose, many find themselves sluggish, distracted, and unable to concentrate on the tasks that matter most. Productivity takes a quiet hit, and the cycle of indulgence becomes more consuming than inspiring. In the early stages, this shift can be subtle. A project that once excited you may feel overwhelming, deadlines start slipping, and motivation to pursue new challenges fades. You might notice yourself putting off responsibilities, telling yourself you'll do them later, but that later rarely arrives. This isn't just laziness. It's the aftereffect of energy being drained in one area of life at the expense of all others. The brain, constantly flooded with stimulation, begins to crave short bursts of pleasure rather than long-term achievements that require patience and discipline. Focus also weakens under this strain. Tasks that once took an hour now drag on for much longer because the mind keeps wandering or struggling to stay present. You may find yourself daydreaming, restless, or unable to stick to routines. It's not that you've lost ambition. It's that your attention span is fractured by a cycle of overindulgence. The constant highs and lows of hormonal release disrupt the clarity that's needed to think deeply, solve problems, and create meaningful progress in life. The impact doesn't stop at work or personal goals. Even simple habits like exercising, reading, or spending quality time with loved ones can feel less appealing because the energy you would normally invest in them has already been spent. Slowly, your lifestyle shifts from one of growth and productivity to one of repetition and stagnation. The drive that once defined your character starts to dim, and without realizing it, you begin to live below your potential. The truth is, intimacy should fuel your life, not drain it. When kept in balance, it brings vitality, confidence, and connection that spills into everything you do. But when it dominates your time and energy, it quietly steals the fire that pushes you forward. Productivity and focus are not just about discipline. They are about protecting your energy from being consumed by excess. The body has a way of warning you when balance is broken, and those warnings become louder the more you ignore them. Excessive intimacy may feel harmless at first, but over time it begins to chip away at your physical health in ways that are hard to miss. One of the first effects is a weakened immune system. Because the body is constantly using energy to recover from overindulgence, it has less strength left to defend against illnesses. You may notice yourself catching colds more often, feeling run down, or struggling to bounce back as quickly as you once did. Soreness and discomfort are also common signals. Muscles ache, joints feel stiff, and the body doesn't seem as resilient as before. What was once pleasurable begins leaving behind a trail of physical strain that lingers long after the moment has passed. The skin can show signs of irritation, dehydration becomes more common, and overall stamina feels reduced. These are not just surface-level inconveniences, they are signs that the body is overworked and in need of rest. Hormonal stress is another consequence that creeps in silently. Constant spikes and crashes in dopamine, oxytocin, and testosterone disrupt the body's natural equilibrium, leaving you tired, irritable, or even moody without understanding why. Sleep can also be affected as the body struggles to regulate its natural cycles. Nights become restless, mornings become heavier, and the overall quality of rest declines. Without deep sleep, the body's ability to heal itself weakens even further, creating a cycle of exhaustion that is difficult to escape. In the long run, the risks become more serious. Too much strain on the reproductive system, combined with weakened immunity and constant hormonal imbalance, can lead to chronic fatigue, low energy, and even more significant health concerns. The body is not designed for continuous overuse. It thrives on rhythm, balance, and periods of recovery. Ignoring these needs only accelerates wear and tear. The danger lies in how easy it is to dismiss these health warnings as minor or temporary. Many people overlook the connection between overindulgence and their declining vitality, blaming stress, diet, or age instead. But the truth is that excess in this area quietly erodes strength from the inside out. Protecting your health means respecting your body's limits. When intimacy is enjoyed with balance, it restores and empowers. When it is taken too far, it leaves behind not passion, but damage. Too much of anything steals its value, and intimacy is no different. What should energize, connect, and inspire can quickly drain, detach, and damage when taken to excess. Balance is the key. Because when desire is mastered, it doesn't weaken your life, it strengthens every part of it.